Welcome to a new episode of Cultural Connections, where we invite diverse guests from various backgrounds to discuss concepts of religion and culture with the goal of building bridges of understanding. Today, we have Sarah, a Muslim woman who wears the hijab, and John, who is curious to learn about Islam and its origins. We'll be listening to an insightful dialogue that delves into understanding Islam from multiple perspectives. Welcome, Sarah and John.
Thank you for having us.
To start, John, tell us what motivates you to have this conversation about Islam. What sparked your curiosity?
Thanks for the opportunity. Well, I live in a diverse community with people from many religious backgrounds, including Muslims. I've always wanted to understand Islam more deeply, beyond the common stereotypes. I think a direct conversation with someone like Sarah can clarify a lot for me.
That's a great start. Sarah, what do you think? Do you find that Islam is often misunderstood in Western societies?
Thank you, John, for your honesty and your interest in understanding. Honestly, I think many people have misconceptions about Islam, partly because of limited access to reliable information or because they rely solely on the media. Islam is a complex and diverse religion that promotes peace and coexistence.
That's interesting, Sarah. I always thought Islam focused more on strict rules and discipline than on peace. Could you explain how it can be a religion that promotes peace?
Certainly, that's an important question. At its core, Islam means peace, and there are many verses in the Quran and sayings of the Prophet that emphasize tolerance and coexistence. For example, the Quran says, "There is no compulsion in religion." This means that faith should come from the heart, not by force. Muslims are encouraged to respect differences and act with kindness.
This leads to another important question. John, what are some preconceived ideas that come to mind when you think of Islam, and have they changed after this conversation?
Well, I've always thought Islam was mostly about strict rituals rather than spirituality and peace. But from Sarah's insights, I see that it also emphasizes human values like tolerance and good character.
Exactly, John. Human values and ethics are central to Islam. Islam isn't just about rituals, it's a way of life that encourages respect, compassion, and kindness. There are many teachings about kindness to neighbors, charity for the poor, and caring for nature.
That's wonderful. I see you're wearing the hijab, Sarah, which is another topic that raises a lot of questions. Many people see the hijab as a symbol of restriction or discrimination. How do you view it?
The hijab, to me, is ultimately a personal choice and represents part of my identity and values as a Muslim. I wear it because I feel comfortable and respected by it. It's more a symbol of privacy than a restriction. Islam gives us the freedom to make our own decisions, and hijab is one of those choices.
Is it a requirement in Islam, or just an option?
Hijab is part of Islamic teachings for women, but observing it is
That's a
based on
great
personal
point,
conviction.
and I think it adds a new perspective
Every
for
woman
listeners on
decides
this
for
topic.
herself whether or not
John,
to wear the
do you have
hijab,
any other
and this
questions
choice is
about
respected
Islamic
in
teachings?
Islam.
Yes, I've often heard about the practice of prayer in Islam, and that Muslims pray 5 times a day. How do you feel about this commitment, Sarah?
Prayer is an essential part of our lives as Muslims. It's a moment to pause amidst the busyness of life and remember God, renewing our peace and energy. This commitment isn't a burden, it actually brings a sense of tranquility and balance.
I understand now. It seems that prayer is not just a religious duty but also a time for personal connection. But doesn't Islam contain a lot of strict commitments?
The practices in Islam, like prayer and fasting, help us organize our lives and give them more meaning.
Beautifully said, Sarah.
These acts of
It
worship
seems like
embody
John
a
has gained a
spiritual
deeper
relationship with
understanding.
God,
John,
offering
if
time
you
for
were to summarize
reflection
what
and
you've
setting
learned in this
meaningful goals in
conversation,
life.
how would you describe it?
I've learned that Islam is not just about rules and restrictions, it's a faith centered on human values, and it's more than rituals, it's a comprehensive way of life. Thank you very much, Sarah, for this conversation that has allowed me to see things from a different perspective.
Thank you.
I've